Hi, hello. So the first half of this is pre-recorded, but we will, at the end we'll ask any questions and stuff, and then we'll move over to the second link after that, and then I'll be doing my talk. But thanks for tuning in, everyone, and hope you enjoy.
Increasing your personal security and server hardening. Some of you might have come across server hardening before, and for those people, I'm going to go into some more depth, not just your basic adding SSH keys kind of things. And then we're going to have another talk by Ryan afterwards, and he's going to be doing some IP spoofing, what is ARP, going through some of those kinds of things. So stop again. This one doesn't apply to my video so much. This applies more to Ryan's video. Today I'm just going to be talking about the defense side of things. So please go out and try and do all of these, increasing your own personal security and stuff like that out there, and give this advice to other people if you know people that have Linux servers in the cloud and stuff like that. Please go out and share this. For Ryan's video, again, please don't do any of the stuff he's going to be showing you in any malicious way, because it can and could be abused if you are doing it on unopened systems or places you don't have permission to do it. So today we are going to be covering personal account security, your own individual user security. This is incredibly important for us as cybersecurity and security experts, because if they compromise us with our higher levels of privilege on sort of like domain admin levels or something like that, if they manage to hack us as an individual, they can get into whatever company we're working for a lot easier than having to go through all of the steps that we've spent months potentially putting into place and making sure that they can't get into. So our own personal account security, our network security, so trying to figure out and implement a more wider defense of our own systems. We've scanned individual machines now, we've hacked into individual machines, so we're going to be looking at scanning from the outside in and stuff like that, what are firewalls, how to implement them, kind of stuff like that. PC security. So your own individual machine, how we're going to secure that a little bit more than the average person who just sticks Norton 360 or Sophos or these just straight things directly onto the machine and says that's good enough for me. And then, as I say, we're going to be going into some server hardening techniques. Server hardening is making the system harder to hack into, and this is primarily done on Linux servers. It can also be done on Windows servers, but we're going to be covering it from a Linux side. So this is just like a quick checklist for accounts and personal security. So this is your own personal security. So first of all, checking for breached accounts. So a lot of people reuse their passwords out there. It's a very common thing to do, and all of us are sort of like at fault for doing it at some point in time. Having good passwords on our accounts, again, this ties into with the first one. If you have an individual password on every single one of your accounts, if they breach one account, they only get the password for that one server or service. This means that when good passwords aren't implemented, they breach one account, they may be able to get the password for every other account you own or a set of them, and from there pivot into other things. Multiple factor authentication. This isn't just your generic, oh, I have Google Authenticator on my phone. That is the only kind of MFA there is. There are a bunch of different kinds, and I'll be covering some of them where they're used in real life. So they're not actually the scary things that everyone thinks. You can implement them and have already implemented them all over. Have I been pwned? This is in relation to checking for your breach accounts. So this is a public database that I'll be covering later and explaining more in depth there. VPNs on public networks. So a VPN encrypts all of your traffic. So even if the site you're accessing is not running encryption, which is like HTTPS or something like that, you can then also this VPN is enabling you to add that layer of security by encrypting all of your traffic and making it really hard to read from the attacker. Disposable virtual credit cards. So again, if someone manages to intercept the credit card or passwords that you are using for certain accounts, so like say, for example, PayPal or your Google Pay account, these can have a set prepaid amount of money on them. So you can go into stores and buy these prepaid credit cards or virtual debit cards that even if they are breached, even if they get put on the World Wide Web or something like that, not all of the money that you ever have made is going to disappear, because these virtual credit cards and virtual debit cards have limited amounts of credit on them. So it's a good way if you aren't even sure if a site is legit or not, or if they are sending out clear text passwords to, like if you ask for a password reset, you know that their internet security probably isn't the greatest, so therefore you don't want to be using your main credit card. You can use one of these virtual credit cards. So when I'm talking about securing a device, I'm securing your accounts. I'm on about securing sort of like your management accounts that are managing your PC, that are managing your phone, that are managing your iPad, your iPhone. Those sort of like Apple, Microsoft, Google accounts, those big three that are sort of like overarching of everything that you own. So on Windows, this is really easy. You go to your Microsoft homepage, you go onto your devices section, and it'll show you all of the devices that are currently able to log straight onto your account. And it'll show whether you have to enter your new password when you log back onto them, or whether they have tracking on. And if they do, you can sort of like go in and manage each individual device, which is quite useful. So when I'm talking about adding and securing these devices, I'm on about making sure that you don't have a plethora of devices that you don't own anymore that are still able to log onto your account. So let's say you've got that brand new iPhone and you left the old one. You didn't completely wipe it, you just sort of like put it in a cupboard and said, I'll leave that just in case I need a new phone or something like that, or in case I break mine. Same with an old gaming PC. If you've accidentally just left it logged in, or you've just built a new machine and it's still got the Windows certs and everything on it that allows you just to go in and put your PIN in, your 4-digit PIN, might I add, that is running old Windows to be able to get into your password and stuff like that. So going through and removing these old devices, adding MFA onto these like overarching main accounts, which is incredibly useful, because if you lose or your access to your emails, let's say for your Microsoft email that everyone's connected to, you can just go on and say, oh, I've lost my MFA on, let's say, your banking one. Because they have access to your email, they can bypass it. If you go on and have MFA on this as well, there's always the small chance that you'll lose your phone, break your phone, or something like that. But there's always the possibility that someone will be prevented indefinitely from ever hacking into you because they don't have your MFA on these overarching devices. Having tracking on them. This is part where we get into a little bit of personal preference. Tracking mobile devices, I believe, should be a thing that every individual has and has access to only their own devices. So family devices, stuff like that, if your family approved, you should be able to track them as well, but only with their approval. For desktops and stuff like that, turn my tracking off. But it means if my laptop is stolen whilst I'm at the university, in a coffee shop, at the airport, the next time they connect to Wi-Fi, I'll be able to find where it is. Again, that's a quite incredibly useful feature. But that's all about you securing your own account. If you don't want people to be able to find, or in case they find your device or manage to get into your account and find where you live through it, then you should probably secure your account more than the device. So what does this enable you doing once you've secured your device and have one of these sort of like management systems, find my device kind of things on it? So what it means is, let's say I'm at a bar or something after work, or I'm in a coffee shop and I go to the bathroom, or I go and order another drink and someone comes along and steals my laptop. It means that all I have to do is log on to the website using my phone, another device, something like that, and be able to go into it and say, okay, find my phone or find my laptop, which you won't be able to do a lot of. I don't recommend that you go out and actually try and find the person that stole your laptop, because most of the time that will end up something untoward happening. But if you go to the police and say, yeah, I can track exactly where they are, they're right here heading down this street, if it's a phone or something like that, or if you go to them and say, yeah, they've connected it from this address, it's a public address, like just some guy's house, they'll go, okay, let's go. And they'll more likely to go after and sort of like help you recover your item, and a lot quicker than having to wait till it's sold on a market somewhere or something like that. If you have a live tracking information, say it's here, 3 streets down, 1 street over, they're most probably going to go get it. Another thing you can do is just remotely lock the device with Windows. So when you click that lock button, every time then you boot the machine, it will then say, sorry, this device has been blocked. Please, and then you get to insert whatever message you want on the screen, depending if it has profanity or not. But you can go and do these things. This becomes incredibly big step when you are working for organizations and having a security posture if you are dealing with any kind of sensitive information. Because as for an individual, okay, the stuff I keep on my laptop probably isn't that important, isn't the biggest concern in the world. Let's say you work for a company and you've got patents, or you've got company information, client information. If your device isn't encrypted, they have access to the data. If you don't have a way of locking people out of that device, again, you can be facing big fines. If you don't have a way of finding it, the police aren't going to be able to go and get it. Again, these things aren't overly useful to us as individuals right now, but they are incredibly useful to organizations you'll be working for in the future. And there is policies, procedures, everything like that, that mandates that you have to have these kinds of systems in place or have a very good reason why they're not, that you would be able to go to a court of law and prove. So as I said, have I been pwned? So Have I Been Pwned is a service that has been around for quite a number of years now. It is a massive database, the likes of which most people will never ever see, that is full of email addresses and passwords. You can go on there and search your own email address, and I highly recommend you do, and it'll tell you in a bunch of different breaches what you were leaked in. So this is probably the largest user breach you will ever have seen, and that's because it is a generic admin@admin.com. This isn't my own personal one. I have not been breached 120 times. But this is just the nice one that I use to show a lot of people that all this information is out there. So it allows you to check where when someone finds a breach, they can send it over to Troy Hunt, who is the maintainer kind of thing of this website, and he will add it into the list once it's been verified, and have these huge email databases. And when a new email database gets added, you can set up a alerting feature. This is the most incredible part about Have I Been Pwned, is the alerting feature. So you go on their website, you register your email address, you click the verification link or whatever it is, and it then will monitor your email address. So if your email address ever shows up in any of the breaches that get added to Have I Been Pwned, it will automatically email you saying, hey, your your email address has come up from GitHub, a GitHub breach, or a Stronghold Kingdoms game breach. These are all just things I'm picking out mid-air. GitHub, please don't sue me for saying that your internet security isn't good enough. It is, because I've never received one from it. But something like Stronghold Kingdoms did get breached, and I got an email alert saying, hey, you should probably change your password to it. So it is an incredibly good service, and it is free, which is even better. If you go away and you start working for a company, they have a paid subscription that allows you to monitor your whole email domain. So what I mean by the domain is, let's say, @northumbria.ac.uk. They will then monitor any email address that has @northumbria.ac.uk, and you can go away and register these for whatever company you go away and work with. And I highly recommend you do that as well, because it gives you that early insider sort of like alert to say whether your account's been breached or whether your company's been breached in some kind of database hack. Network security. So now we're moving sort of like inside our router. So our router is the thing that connects like our Wi-Fi to the public internet. So what I recommend you do at some point is, when you're out sitting in CIS or something, or out and about, you can scan your own network with some of the tools that we've been on about. So whether that be Greenbone or Nessus, Nmap, all of these sort of like basic scanning features. Scan your public IP, make sure that you've definitely know that it's your own public IP before you leave the house to go and do these scans. And then sort of like look at the report afterwards. Sort of like look at what's open already. Has your router got SSH open to the world? Is it hosting a web server? Is it sharing media files that it shouldn't be? There was an issue probably a couple of years ago now that they've patched since. That was if you plugged in a USB hard drive to your Asus router, it put whatever was on that hard drive out on the internet for everyone to see, not just for you to see, which was the intention where you logged in, but they left in default credentials that it was blank. So you could just view whatever someone put on their hard drive out there, and it was backup information. It was sort of like NAS storage, so they had sensitive information, some of them, and it was just open to the world. Segmentating your network. This is, I'm going to go into a little bit more depth later, but this is portioning off the part of your network that you are doing your hacking on. So whether that be the virtual machine that you are hacking into, you put on a host-only network or something like that. But don't, like, if you are running these virtual machines and you have them hosted on a server that you can access from other computers and they are attached to your network, please don't leave them on when you're not using them, because as you know how vulnerable these machines are, sometimes it's a matter of probably 10 to 20 button presses and you can have a root access. So you don't want to leave these open if they are connected to the internet and stuff like that, because someone could very easily get into them if you haven't segmented or closed off the access from the outside into your network. So as I say, scanning your own public IP. So before you go and just start scanning, check what your IP is first before you leave the house. If you have a laptop or something, the easy way of doing this to like start scanning your own IP once you know it, tether it to your phone. Use your phone's internet to do a quick scan of your own like router's network or whatever it is. And you'll be able to get quite a lot of information, and you'll find stuff that you didn't actually know was out there. Like some routers have web portals open, some have printer servers, some have SSH, like some of the Virgin ones. Like all of these routers have some stuff that's predefined and open that you can go in and close, which I would recommend you doing if you don't need them. If you are forwarding out a Minecraft server or something like that, you'll be able to see them when you do your nmap scan or something like that. Make sure that there's sort of like nothing else that's out there. Like it's not opening up the web GUI for your Minecraft server or something like that. Having a dynamic IP is incredibly helpful with this, because every 3, 6, 8 weeks you can change it depending on your provider. They'll change your IP. So therefore it's incredibly annoying sometimes if you're running servers, but there are ways around that. But having a dynamic IP means that if someone does manage to get into your network or finds your network has an open port and starts trying to hack into you without you knowing, all of a sudden your IP will change and they will have lost you, which is great. The time that they've wasted trying to get in, or one day if they have managed to get in, all of a sudden your IP address changes, they lose access because they don't know where the network's gone. Segmentation. So as I was saying earlier, segmenting your devices. So if you are looking at malware, which I know some of you may or may not do in the future, you want to have it on a separate machine or a separate internet so it can't talk to the real internet, just in case it escapes and goes off and starts messing around with things. Implementing different ways of sort of like limiting the traffic. So using it so that it can get updates, or it can talk to an antivirus server or something like that, but stopping it being able to touch the original intended target or something like that. It's like you can do this by VLANs that you year ones will be learning soon and stuff like that. If you have a personal machine, so this is again your personal security, your desktop, your laptop, stuff like that, or your phones especially, encrypting it. If you are on Android or have like a Google phone or stuff, most of this is set up by default. Again, Apple has it basically set up by default. On Windows, there's a BitLocker encryption that requires a TMP chip just on your motherboard. These are almost as standard now, and it completely encrypts your hard drive to stop if I plugged it into another machine without a password, I would be unable to read the data off it. Again, an incredibly good thing because you will have password managers, you'll have stored hashes on there. If someone manages to rip these off and throw them in a brute forcer like we've done a couple of weeks ago, again, it's all of this stuff that can't happen if your hard drive's encrypted. Having a strong password to log onto your machine, or a PIN, facial recognition. Picture passwords I'm still on the fence about, but having strong passwords or facial IDs are great. Antivirus, malware scanners. We all know how easy it is to get malware or root shell or make a piece of malware that bypasses Windows Defender. Windows Defender is incredibly good because it ships for free. It's on every single machine, but it doesn't stop a lot of stuff. So having a dedicated malware scanner, there's free ones out there that are in addition to your Defender. You can run Malwarebytes and Avast and Sophos. Yes, it'll affect your performance a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's going to stop you from getting potentially malware on your system, or will stop you having to, like, your hard drive completely encrypted by ransomware. Web filtering. So what I mean by this is not just ad blocking. A lot of people here will be running ad blocks, uBlock Origin, for example. And that's what the intended feature is. But there's also ways of making this work in your benefit for a security standpoint. So when I say the security standpoint, I mean it will stop you being allowed to go out and touch bad, dodgy websites that are filled with viruses because they are on a block list. Again, you can do this through a DNS level. Again, you'll be covering DNS, which is your converting, like, your domain name, google.com, Northumbria website, Reddit, to an IP address of a server to allow you to get to it. There are sort of like sets of programs out there that will allow you to block it at that level to stop you even getting the IP, because it'll say, oh, I'm reaching out to imahack.com or something like that. And it will stop you being able to get the IP address of that server, because it'll go, do I have I got a hack in my system? No. Is it on my block list? Yes. Okay, I'm not sending you there. And this is called Pi-hole, is the one I use. There are other ones out there, but that's the one I use, and quite a lot of the other security professionals will be running this at home. And this is a way of web filtering out the traffic. Again, you don't have to use a dedicated machine on a DNS level kind of thing. You can use a browser plugin. You can use different DNS providers that are already out there on the internet. So instead of just using the default Google one of 8.8.8.8, you can go on to like DNS Watch, which automatically filters these for you. There are some other ones out there that will automatically filter out the worst of the worst stuff for you, just in case your computer starts reaching out trying to touch these malicious sites. So server security. So this is if you have like a VPS instance or a virtual private server in the cloud. You are running Ubuntu or Debian or something on a box somewhere in your house. You've got one in the cloud, a dedicated box, something at work you're using. So these are the things that you sort of like have to do if you if you want this account to be safe. So the number one thing above all else is called SSH keys. So an SSH key is a way to replace passwords. It's what you have rather than what you know. So you know a lot of authentication is all based on passwords. There are three kinds of authentication. Passwords, what you know, what you have, let's say an SSH key, and what you are, which is biometric. So that's your facial recognition, your fingerprints. So this can be used in addition to passwords, so that you need to unlock the key and then it will be used, or you can just replace the key with it. So this stops some Joe Nobody sat in Greece on a beach somewhere, just finding your login is open, sitting there for days and days just trying every possible password, and enabling you to then be able to block this access, because they can try forever to get a password and they will eventually get it. Whereas if you don't have a password, they can't get it. They have to physically have the SSH key, which you will hopefully keep secure somewhere. If you are hosting web apps, so let's say you are hosting a Minecraft server on a cloud instance or something like that, and you want to manage it through a pretty GUI interface website. You can set it up so that it can only be accessed through a local host. So you have to SSH in or tunnel into the box before you can access the website. So if you have ever gone and installed a tool on your own system, let's say a web server, you will put in the local IP, so 127.0.0.1, then the port that it's running on. Again, if you have it on a local only host on a server somewhere, you can forward your whatever port that is through the SSH tunnel so that it is only showing up on that one machine in the cloud. If you don't do it with an SSH tunnel, you won't see it. Setting up some auto updating. So what I mean by auto updating is every time you launch Kali, you'll probably do apps-get upgrade or update. You can set it up if this server is running continuously in the cloud so that it automatically does that. You can do that through what's called a cron job, which is incredibly good for making backups, doing automatic updating, and it's a timing-based interval system that's almost built directly into Linux. So when you are running these cron jobs, it will automatically do on boot apt update, or every 6 hours it'll do an apt update, or day, week, whatever you want it to be, and it will keep the system up to date to stop those CVE errors mounting up. So we saw how easy it was with Metasploit to be able to access and attack these things. So that's why I'm doing this briefing kind of like at the end of all of the other ones, because now you've seen what CVE errors are. You know why it's important to keep up to date, what an out-of-date version can possibly do. Firewalls. So firewalls are one of those things that are incredibly useful, but they aren't 100% mandatory if you know and have checked what ports are open. So a firewall is a filtering service or a wall that gets put up right in front of the services that are on your network. So it will stop people being able to access stuff they're not supposed to. But if all you're running on your system is basic firewall, basic websites, web servers, and you've disabled SSH access, so you have to physically go and access the root account, or if your server is only hosting a website, you can say disable everything but the website, which runs on port 443 or 8443. That's it. It will stop all of the traffic that will even attempt to access your network if you have a physical server. Incredibly, incredibly good. You can set it up so that it blocks everything and only allows different ports through. So if all of a sudden you say you want to put let's go with Minecraft again. You want to put a Minecraft server on the cloud or out in the wild. All of a sudden you say, okay, I'm adding port 255 or 25565 out onto your firewall. Traffic will then be allowed to get to your to that port, but it won't be allowed to any other port or your web server that was already running. Disabling the root account. So before you do this, there are caveats. Make another account first before you stop being able to log in as root. I've done this before. It was a bad time. I'm going to be going over a little bit more of how to disable your root account, just to make sure that you get it in the right order kind of things. In addition to your standard firewall, you can do something what's called geo-blocking. So we all know that IP addresses can come from all over the world, but there are sort of regions, or you can trace which country IPs come from. So fail to ban is a free implementation of geo-blocking IPs, or allowing only certain IPs to allow to be connected to your system. This is incredibly useful if you know that your company will never change its IP address. It has a business line, so it will never change its IP address. So this is good because if you then get a cloud instance, you can say, if any IP that isn't from my home computer, which I know is a static IP because I'm going to be managing this server, from my own personal VPS instance, which will never change its IP, or the company IP, do not let them log into SSH, or do not allow them to access this data. This kind of thing can be implemented with fail to ban, so you can limit your access control to certain IP addresses or certain domain names, stuff like that. And then the last step, which is one of those things of some people love it, some people hate it, is two-factor authentication for servers. So the Google Auth thing is, again, I was talking about MFA a little bit earlier and different kinds of it. This MFA is your standard Google multi-factor authenticator. Every time you log in, there's a 6-digit code that you'll need to access and enter as well. And it is literally you scan or enter the the barcode onto your phone, and again, that account or that machine, depending on how you set it up, that server, will require 2FA every time that you log into it or another user. You have to be quite careful with this, because if you enable it for every account and that you only add your own multi-factor authenticator, every time someone wants to log in, they'll have to ask you for the MFA. Again, this is one of those things of some people love it, some people hate it. So we all hear a lot about multi-factor authentication this and MFA that and 2MFA and 3MFA and all this kind of MFA stuff. What is it actually? Why is there so many words, and why is it such a talked about thing? Because it's so effective. As I was saying, there's 3 kinds of sort of like authentication methods. What you know, who you are, and what you have. So what you have, some of these sort of like YubiKeys, which are hardware MFAs. What you have, your authenticator app, what you know, your passwords, your username, your email address, your security questions. What you are, biometrics, facial scanner, retinal scanner, fingerprints, DNA testing. These are what you are. And you can implement multiple of these, because passwords, as we know, they can be brute force, they can be guessed, they can be asked for nicely if you are a social engineer. Security questions, these can be talked around. You can guess them. Your ex may be able to guess them. They may be on social media. So quite a big one that a lot of companies use for their security questions. What is your mother's maiden name? Okay, let me just boot up Facebook. What's your mum's name? Oh, did they change it after they were married? That kind of stuff. What kind of music was you listening to? What was your first album? Go on to Facebook. Again, scroll back through the history. What was the first album they added on Facebook? What was the kind of music did they listen to? Have they told you in conversation? This is some of the stuff if you are dealing with people that are closely related to you trying to hack you. PIN codes. What's your date of birth? What's your year of birth? What's like a 4 numbers? Is it 0000? That kind of stuff. Biometrics. Heart attack. Text. They need to have access for your phone or spoof your number or something like that. Or dedicated authenticator apps. All of these can be done and are possible to get round them. But if they manage to get round one of them, they're going to struggle to get round a second or even a third if it is a very high security implementation. So it's not a scary subject. What it means is you are adding 2 of these random or 2 of these non-random things. So you can have biometrics, which is your fingerprint scanner, and a PIN code if you are wanting to access, let's say, Telegram for your secure messaging. Security questions. When you log onto your bank, it'll ask you for your dedicated username. Okay, so that's something you know. Your PIN. Okay, I know that. And then a security question. Okay. MFA, again, when you type in your password to access your email, send you a Google alert or a Microsoft alert that says, was this you? Yes, no. That's 2MFA. You already use it when you're out and about. Card payments over £45 where you have to put your PIN in, that's a form of 2FA. Multi-factor authentication. You have to have the card, you have to know the PIN. Your home alarm, you have to have the keys to get into the house, you have to know the PIN to put it into the alarm box. So you're already using these, so adding these to the accounts, yes, it may take you a couple of weeks if you're logging into the account every day to get used to it. But once you are used to it, it just becomes another part of your life. You just know, oh, I'm going to be signing in on a new device. Okay, I need my phone with me. That's not the end of the world. It takes an extra 10, 20 seconds to put in your 2FA pin, and it may stop you ever being hacked. So that kind of stuff is incredibly, incredibly useful. And as multi-factor authentication goes, on servers and in securing more devices. Now there's so many different methods out there. Authy is a cloud synced one. You can put it on multiple devices. So if you lose your phone, it's not the end of the world kind of thing. But there are these other options. So as I was saying, stopping root login. So before you've done this, like before you start just messing around with your SSH config, create a new user and add it to your sudo group. I'm not going to tell you exactly how to do this because you can go away and do it, but you have to have another account before you stop being allowed to log in as root. Because if all of a sudden you are, like say, oh, root isn't allowed to log in anymore, but you haven't created another one, you've got a problem there because now no one can log in. Again, you want to add your user, disable root login, add your SSH keys, or add your SSH keys to your new user, and then remove root login. You can still, once you're on the box, elevate your privilege to root, but they cannot log in from the internet, which is incredibly, incredibly useful. So in short, we've talked about parts of server hardening. We've talked about increasing our own personal protection and our own network's personal protection. And we've also talked about how we can protect our own companies that we go off and work for in the future. Because a lot of us will be working as probably analysts or starting out in a sort of like an admin job or a technician job. And protecting our networks is as important as protecting our users. We knew social engineering worked so effectively last week. So if we train our people well, and we have strong network security and strong personal security, it's going to make it harder for us to be hacked into. Because we've shown you a bit about how to, now we're showing you about how to prevent. So when we come back next year, we're going to be doing some more stuff on this and some more defense in depth kind of things. So thank you very much for coming to talks this term or watching them back on YouTube. We are very appreciative for it. If you have any questions, please contact us on Discord. As always, our Discord is open. You can come and talk to us here whenever. But if you are going to come and want to email us directly, that is perfectly fine as well. My email is matt.f.chambers@northumbria.ac.uk. And as I say, feel free to contact me on there. But if you would contact us on Discord first, because we have a full support team. So thank you very much for your time. Enjoy your Christmas break, and we will get back to it in the new year. Ryan is going to be doing a talk now on an attack, so I will leave you in his very capable hands. And
all right. Does anyone have any questions before we jump over to the other stream? Give it a minute just to see if anything comes in. Doesn't look like anything's coming through. All right. Oh,
Is there a point?
Go on, Matt.
It's that point of overkill comes whenever you feel like it's enough. Like it depends what kind of system you're working with. If it's your home NAS storage device that's literally got some family photos, it isn't accessible outside the internet, you're going to put a lot less security on that than, let's say, you're working for a banking system or you're working in something that's got a high security or needs high security. Then you're going to put in a lot of extra stuff into that as well. So it's one of those things of down to the purpose. The minimum bar is SSH keys, no root login, and a firewall. Anything above that is just how secure do you want to make yourself or your server or whatever device you're using.
I think that's probably it. So we'll head over to the other stream. I'm hoping Matt can drop that in chat while I get set up, but we'll see you over there in a couple of minutes.
Loading Discord.